The most scandalous secret in Vatican City is about to be revealed. It's a tale of lust, power, and unimaginable wealth that will make you question everything you know about the Church. Let's get started. In 1492, the year Christopher Columbus reached the New World, a small fishing village in southern France became the center of the Catholic universe. The tiny town of Castel Gandolfo was home to just a few hundred people making their living off the land and sea. That is until Pope Alexander VI made it his summer residence. Today it is known as the Papal Palace and stands as one of the most beautiful buildings in all of Europe. Built at the height of the Renaissance, its construction cost over 30 million gold florins. It's an astronomical sum that would be equivalent to nearly $1 billion in today's money. It took 18 years to complete, with architects and artists from across Europe working day and night to make the Pope's palace a reality. And when it was finally finished, it was truly a sight to behold. In fact, when Alexander moved in, he reportedly remarked, "I have built myself a beautiful house. Who could ever want anything more?" But his joy was short-lived, because what happened next would forever tarnish his reputation and lead many to believe that the real reason he had built this extravagant estate was not for himself, but for his illegitimate children. Alexander VI took the throne in 1492, and during his papacy would become one of the wealthiest men in the world. He oversaw the sale of indulgences which granted people forgiveness of their sins in exchange for money. In fact, by the time he died in 1503, he had accumulated so much wealth that he was able to rebuild St. Peter's Basilica, one of the largest churches in all of Christianity. And yet, despite having so much money, he was also known for living a very frugal lifestyle. In fact, he was so cheap that he even refused to pay his own employees. On one occasion, he didn't pay his tailor for 6 months, causing the man to go hungry. So eventually, the tailor went to the Pope and said, "Your Holiness, I have not been paid for the work I've done, and now I am starving. Please pay me." But the Pope replied, "You work for the Church. It is your duty to serve God and the Church. Money is not important. Just keep working." The tailor was outraged and cursed the Pope, saying, "May God curse you and your seed." And as fate would have it, that prophecy came true. As you might have guessed from the title of this video, Alexander VI had a lot of illegitimate children. In fact, he had to acknowledge bastards, and rumors suggest that he had many more that were kept secret. But who were these children, and how did they come to be? Well, let me tell you a story that will shock you. When Alexander was just a young priest, he fell in love with a woman named Vanda, who would later become the mother of his first child. Now, while it is true that priests are supposed to remain celibate, this rule wasn't always followed, especially by high-ranking members of the clergy. In fact, there was even a special dispensation that allowed popes to have mistresses and father children. However, they had to be careful, because if word got out, they would be subject to ridicule and disgrace. Alexander and Vanda were able to keep their relationship a secret for many years, but eventually the truth came out, and she was banished from the Church. Not only that, but Alexander was also required to marry her in order to legitimize their son, Cesare Borgia. But as if one illegitimate child wasn't enough, just a few years later, Alexander found himself in hot water again, this time with a woman named Michaela, who would become the mother of his second child, Lucretia Borgia. Once again, Alexander was forced to marry the woman in order to legitimize his son. But he was also required to send him away to live with his father, leaving little Giovanni in the care of his grandfather, Alfonso de Borgia. Now, you might be thinking that this is where the story ends, but trust me, it is just beginning. You see, shortly after sending his son away, Alexander made a decision that would shock the world, decided to resign from the papacy, which led many people to believe that he was doing so because he could unhandle the guilt of his actions. But the truth was far from that. After giving up the papacy, Alexander returned to his old life and began living with his mistress, Michaela. He then had 3 more children with her, 2 boys and a girl, and named them Giulietta, Geoffrey, and Alesso. He also legitimized them, although he never married Michaela like he had with Vanda, with his 6 illegitimate children now legitimized. Alexander felt free to live his life however he wanted to. He lavished gifts on his sons, including the beautiful Palazzo Venezia in Rome, which still stands today as a testament to his wealth and power. But not everyone was happy with the Pope's decision to have children out of wedlock. In fact, some people believe that he was cursed by God himself, and that his entire family was destined for nothing but tragedy. Could Could they be right? Or is this just a rumor spread by those who wanted to see the Pope disgraced? Only time will tell. As you might have guessed, Alexander's decision to have children outside of wedlock caused quite a stir in the church, and many people believe that he was corrupt and unfit to be pope. This was especially true since he had previously been known for his piety and commitment to the church. But despite the criticism, he continued to do as he pleased, secure in the knowledge that he was protected by his position as pope. However, as we all know, being pope doesn't necessarily mean you're immune to bad things happening to you. In fact, in 1503, Alexander would meet his demise in a way that was both shocking and tragic. While attending a party in his palace, he began feeling ill and soon realized that he was dying. Although he had previously been in good health, he had recently come down with a fever that no amount of medicine seemed to be able to cure. As he lay on his deathbed, he knew that his time had come, and he called for his 6 children to come to his side. In the end, 4 of his kids showed up, but 2 of them were notably absent, Caesar and Lucretia. Alexander was deeply disappointed that his eldest son didn't come to say goodbye, but he knew that the young man had a busy schedule. After all, Caesar was a cardinal, and the future pope, Alexander VII. However, he was surprised that Lucretia didn't show up, since she had always been close to him. In fact, she had even accompanied him on his trip to France to select the site for his summer palace. In the final moments of his life, Alexander made a chilling discovery that would change everything. He learned that his daughter Lucretia had poisoned him. But why would she do such a thing? Was she jealous of the attention given to her younger siblings? Or did she want her father's power for herself? Fortunately, we may never know the truth. When Alexander passed away, he left behind a legacy that was both impressive and controversial. He had been a brilliant theologian and gifted preacher, but he had also been a man who had strayed from the teachings of the church. His 6 children would go on to make their mark on history, but they too would be involved in scandal and intrigue. Caesar, the eldest son, would become Pope Alexander VII. But his papacy would be overshadowed by rumors that he was homosexual. Lucretia, the second eldest, would marry several times and give birth to several children, but her reputation would be ruined by false accusations of promiscuity. Giulietta, the youngest daughter, would enter a monastery, but she, too, would be caught up in scandal when she gave birth to a child while taking holy vows. The 3 illegitimate sons, Geoffrey Alesso and Valentino, would all die young, leaving Alexander with only 2 surviving children, Cesare and Lucretia. Although Alexander VI is remembered by many as a great pope, his legacy is also tarnished by the sins he committed during his lifetime. He left behind a family that was torn apart by scandal and intrigue, and many people believe that his illegitimate children were cursed by God himself. Whether or not that is true remains to be seen. But one thing is for sure, the secrets of Pope Alexander VI are sure to live on for centuries to come.